Before we begin, take a second to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications, because stories like this don't just live on screen, they live behind it. When MASH first aired, it felt like something rare and unshakable. Week after week, audiences didn't just tune in for jokes or punchlines. They came back because the people inside the 4077th Mobile Army Surgical Hospital felt real, familiar, safe. These characters weren't superheroes. They were flawed, exhausted, sarcastic, and deeply human. Hawkeye Pierce wasn't just funny, he was thoughtful. Henry Blake wasn't powerful, he was kind. Trapper John wasn't loud, he was loyal. Radar wasn't brave, he was pure. Together, they created something that felt permanent. But permanence was an illusion. Slowly, quietly, without scandal or headlines, the foundation began to crack. Faces disappeared. Energy shifted. And viewers were left wondering how a show so beloved could keep losing the people who made it feel whole. The truth lies not in failure, but in success, and the invisible cost that comes with it. MASH was never meant to be comfortable television. From the very beginning, it was a contradiction by design, a comedy set in the middle of war. Laughter echoing through operating tents stained with blood, characters cracking jokes minutes after witnessing death. That tension wasn't accidental, it was the heartbeat of the show. Set during the Korean War but airing during the height of Vietnam War disillusionment, MASH spoke directly to a generation questioning authority, patriotism, and blind obedience. Every episode forced viewers to laugh and feel uneasy at the same time. Doctors saved lives knowing those same men would be sent back into danger. The humor softened the pain, but never erased it. That moral discomfort made the show powerful and exhausting. What viewers didn't see was how carrying that emotional weight week after week affected the people behind the characters. Playing humor on top of trauma requires balance, and as the series evolved, that balance became harder to maintain. What made MASH brilliant also made it fragile. In its early seasons, MASH thrived because no single character carried the entire moral burden. Hawkeye Pierce may have stood out, but he wasn't alone. Trapper John stood beside him, not behind him. Their friendship felt equal, shared, and natural. Henry Blake acted as a buffer between military chaos and human decency, a leader whose flaws made him approachable instead of authoritative. Radar O'Reilly quietly held everything together, sensing emotions before words were spoken. The humor worked because it was shared. The drama resonated because responsibility was divided. No one character was asked to represent the entire soul of the show. That balance allowed the series to breathe. It also allowed the actors to feel valued as contributors rather than components. But as ratings climbed and cultural praise intensified, the creative focus began to narrow. The show didn't lose quality, it gained depth. And in doing so, it began to change what it demanded from its cast. By the third season, MASH was no longer just a comedy with dramatic moments. It had become a meditation on war, trauma, and emotional survival. Episodes dug deeper into guilt, exhaustion, and the psychological damage of constant crisis. Critics praised the shift. Awards followed. The show earned its place in television history. But this evolution came with consequences. Not every character was designed to grow in the same way. As the writing became more introspective, some roles expanded while others narrowed. The ensemble circle slowly reshaped itself into a structure with a clear center. That center became Hawkeye Pierce. What began as shared storytelling gradually transformed into a more singular moral voice. This wasn't malicious or planned, it was organic. But organic change can still leave people behind. For the actors whose characters were no longer evolving, the success of the show began to feel uneven. And that's where the departures truly began. Alan Alda's influence on MASH cannot be overstated. As his role expanded beyond acting into writing and creative direction, the show gained clarity and emotional sharpness. Hawkeye evolved from a mischievous rebel into a philosophical conscience, questioning war, authority, and morality with increasing depth. For the series, this was a breakthrough. Hawkeye became the voice of everything MASH wanted to say. But behind the scenes, a new hierarchy quietly formed, not of rank, but of narrative importance. While the show mocked military power structures, it unintentionally created its own. Some actors felt their creative voices shrinking. They weren't angry. They weren't fighting. They were simply realizing that the show they helped build no longer needed them in the same way. and that realization can be harder to process than open conflict. McLean Stevenson never expected Henry Blake to define his career. To him, it was a meaningful but temporary role, one piece of a balanced ensemble. Henry Blake wasn't meant to deliver speeches or dominate scenes. He was human, distracted, and quietly compassionate. Stevenson played him perfectly. Audiences loved him. Critics noticed. Success arrived fast, and success changes perspective. As MASH became a phenomenon, Stevenson began to feel limited by a character designed not to grow. While other roles deepened, Henry Blake remained intentionally static. What writers saw as stability, Stevenson experienced as stagnation. He believed he was capable of more: leading roles, greater authority, creative control. Leaving MASH at its peak felt risky but necessary. The decision was his. What followed shocked television audiences forever. Henry Blake didn't just leave the show, he was taken from it. His discharge felt hopeful, almost joyful. Then came the announcement. His plane was shot down. No goodbye, no reunion, just loss. The choice was deliberate. War doesn't offer closure. Viewers were devastated. Television storytelling was changed forever. But outside MASH, reality hit harder. Stevenson's post-show career never matched his expectations. Projects failed. Momentum faded. Eventually, he admitted the truth. Audiences loved Henry Blake, not him. The realization was painful and permanent. His story became a cautionary tale about misunderstanding success and how walking away from something meaningful doesn't guarantee something better waits on the other side. Wayne Rogers joined MASH believing in partnership. Trapper John wasn't written as secondary, he was Hawkeye's equal. Early episodes reflected that balance. But as Hawkeye became the emotional center, Trapper's role narrowed. Dialogue shortened. Development stalled. Rogers noticed. He raised concerns quietly and professionally. He wasn't fighting ego, he was defending the identity of the show he believed in. The response was clear. The direction wouldn't change. Rogers made a difficult decision. He walked away, not in anger, but in self-respect. Unlike others, Wayne Rogers rebuilt his life successfully. He found roles, earned respect, and eventually stepped away from acting entirely to pursue finance and investing. His exit marked a turning point for MASH. The show became more focused, more serious, and more centered on one voice. The balance never fully returned. Trapper John was replaced, but the dynamic was. Larry Linville understood Frank Burns deeply. He played him as fear hiding behind arrogance. But over time, nuance disappeared. Frank became a cartoon. Linville feared being trapped in hatred. He chose dignity over comfort. Leaving forced the writers to evolve. Frank Burns was replaced by Charles Winchester, and the show matured. Linville sacrificed fame but preserved his craft. Gary Burghoff carried the heart of MASH. Radar O'Reilly represented innocence in chaos. Audiences adored him. But fame came with exhaustion. Long hours, missed moments, emotional repetition. Burghoff realized Radar had given everything. Leaving wasn't quitting, it was survival. Radar's exit was gentle. No disgrace, no bitterness, just resolution. It mirrored Burghoff's reasons, choosing life over longevity, balance over applause. It was one of the most honest exits in the show's history. Every departure told a different story, but together they revealed one truth: success magnifies pressure. Not everyone pays the same price willingly, and that's okay. MASH survived every loss, but it was never unchanged. It grew quieter, heavier, more reflective. Laughter remained, but it carried scars. The actors didn't betray MASH. They embodied it. They chose themselves when staying became too costly. And that may be the most human decision of all. If you were standing at the peak of success, quietly unraveling inside, would you stay or would you walk away? Tell us which departure affected you the most. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us for more untold stories behind television's greatest shows.